You arrive in California chasing gold. But the first thing that touches you is not fortune. It is mud. Thick, cold, endless mud, crushed under boots, wagon wheels, shovels, mules, and the feet of men who have crossed oceans, deserts, mountains, and disease for one reason. A rumor. Some came because they wanted to become rich. Some came because they had already lost too much at home. And some came because the idea of staying poor felt more frightening than the idea of dying far away. By 1849, California is no longer a quiet frontier at the edge of the continent. It is a human flood. Ships crowd the bay. Wagons crawl over the plains. Trails disappear under dust, rain, and exhaustion. And every man who arrives believes the same dangerous thing, that somewhere in these rivers, there is enough gold to change his life forever. But if you want to survive the California gold rush, you must understand this before anything else. Gold is not the only thing waiting for you, and it may not even be the most dangerous. The story begins at Sutter's Mill along the American River in January of 1848. There, James W. Marshall noticed something shining in the water. Tiny flakes. Almost nothing. But those flakes were powerful enough to pull the world toward California. At first, the discovery was whispered, then repeated, then exaggerated, then believed. By the end of 1849, tens of thousands of people had rushed into California. They became known as the 49ers. But most of them had no real idea what the goldfields would demand from them. The first test was simply getting there alive. If you came overland, you faced dry plains, broken wagons, failing animals, empty water barrels, and distances so vast they could break a man's mind before they broke his body. One broken will could delay you for days. One wrong turn could cost you everything. The mountains did not care how close you thought you were. If you came by sea, you might spend months sailing around Cape Horn, packed into a ship with strangers, bad food, sickness, storms, and the constant fear that the ocean would take you before California ever appeared. And if you chose the Panama route, hoping it would be faster, you traded one danger for another. Jungle heat, mud, mosquitoes, disease. A shortcut that could become a graveyard. So when you finally reach San Francisco, exhausted and half-broken, you may think the worst is behind you. It is not. Because California does not reward arrival. It only asks what you can endure next. The harbor is full of ships, some abandoned by crews who have run to the mines. The city is growing faster than anyone can control it. Tents become streets. Streets become markets. Markets become traps. Everywhere, men are buying tools, food, boots, blankets, pans, shovels, anything they believe will carry them one step closer to gold. But the gold fields are not waiting patiently. They are already crowded. Your first night in camp tells you what this world really is. Canvas tents sag in the rain. Smoke hangs low over the muddy lanes. Men argue in the darkness. Lanterns move like nervous ghosts between shacks, saloons, and supply tents. There are no clean streets here. No reliable law close enough to protect you. No guarantee that the man beside your fire will still be friendly tomorrow. The camp smells of wet canvas, smoke, sweat, animals, spoiled food, and bad sanitation. And before you ever find gold, you must find water. That sounds simple. But in the gold fields, even water can betray you. The same creek that promises gold is also used by hundreds of men. They stand in it. They wash tools in it. They dump waste near it. They drink from it. And in crowded camps, dirty water becomes a silent killer. Cholera and dysentery do not need a gun. They do not need a warning. They move through the cup in your hand, the bucket beside your tent, the creek everyone trusts because there is no other choice. A man can cross a continent, survive storms, hunger, and the road west, and still be defeated by one mouthful of water. So you learn quickly, boil what you can, trust less than you want to, and never assume the river is your friend. Food is the next trap. In your imagination, the gold fields were supposed to make you rich. But in reality, they make everything expensive. Flour, beans, bacon, coffee, boots, blankets, eggs. The most ordinary things become treasures. A simple meal can cost more than you expected. A shovel can cost too much. A bad purchase can drain the value of a week's work. And then you begin to understand the cruel economy of the gold rush. The men selling supplies may become richer than the men digging for gold. You can find gold in the river and lose it all at the store. You can work all day in freezing water, find a few bright flakes, and then spin them just to eat enough to work again tomorrow. That is the first lesson of the camp. Gold may come from the ground, but survival comes from what you can afford. And if you find too much, a new danger appears. You become visible. Gold dust is small enough to hide inside a coat, under a blanket, or sewn into a lining. But it is valuable enough to change the way people look at you. So you learn not to boast. You learn not to celebrate too loudly. You learn not to drink too much in the saloon tent. You learn that a pouch of gold can make you powerful in the morning and hunted by night. A mining claim might be marked by nothing more than wooden stakes in the mud, a few sticks in the ground, a line near a creek, a place where you hope the earth will make you rich. But hope is not a fence. And in a hungry camp, not everyone respects a claim. Claim jumpers do not need permission. They need a moment of weakness, a sick man, a distracted partner, a night with too much rain and too few witnesses. Formal courts are often too far away to matter. So the miners create rules of their own. Sometimes those rules protect order. Sometimes they become another kind of danger. A camp meeting can decide who owns a claim. A crowd can decide who is guilty. A whisper can become an accusation. And when justice comes from frightened men in a lawless place, truth may not be enough. If you are robbed, help may come too late. If you are accused, innocence may not save you. In the goldfields, reputation can be as fragile as a tent in a storm. And the work itself is relentless. You stand in cold water for hours. You bend until your back burns. You scoop, wash, shake, and stare into the pan, searching for one tiny flash of yellow in the mud and black sand. Your hands crack. Your boots stay wet. Your clothes grow heavy. Your body begins to understand what your dream refused to admit. Gold does not come easily. At first, panning seems simple. A pan, a stream, a little patience. But the easy surface gold begins to vanish quickly. More men arrive every day. The same creeks are worked again and again. The gravel is turned, washed, abandoned, searched, and searched again. Soon men build rockers and sluice boxes. They dig deeper. They dam streams. They divert water. They tear open riverbanks and push farther into the hills. The gold always seems to be just beyond the next bend, just beyond the next ridge, just one more day away. And that is what makes the gold rush so dangerous. It does not always destroy men with failure. Sometimes it destroys them with just enough hope to keep them from leaving. A few flakes in the pan. One good morning. One rumor of a richer creek. One story about a man who struck it big just over the hill. That is enough. Enough to keep you cold. Enough to keep you hungry. Enough to make tomorrow feel worth the pain. But the landscape is changing under your feet. Every pan of dirt moves a little more of California. Every trench cuts the bank. Every dam changes the water. Every camp consumes trees, food, space, and silence. The gold rush is not only a hunt for wealth. It is an invasion of a landscape. And for native communities, the rush brings catastrophe. The sudden flood of newcomers disrupts land, water, food sources, safety, and entire ways of life. To survive this world, you must understand that gold fever has many victims. Not all of them are holding a pan. Not all of them came willingly into the story. As the weeks pass, the dream begins to shrink. At first, you imagine a fortune. Then you imagine a good meal. Then a dry blanket. Then clean water. Then one quiet night without coughing, shouting, footsteps outside your tent, or the fear that someone knows where you hid your pouch. That is how the goldfields test you. Not with one heroic moment, but with 100 small decisions. Do you drink from the creek, or wait long enough to boil the water? Do you trust the men beside you, or sleep with one eye open? Do you work alone and risk robbery, or share a claim and risk betrayal? Do you chase a rumor into the hills, or stay near the camp where food and shelter still exist? Do you keep digging after your strength is gone, or leave before the dream consumes everything you have left? Every answer can save you. Every answer can ruin you. Then the weather turns. Rain transforms trails into rivers of mud. Tents leak. Fires die. Blankets grow damp and heavy. The camp becomes a place of coughing, slipping, waiting, and hunger. Cold turns wet clothes into a weight you carry on your skin. Then summer comes, and the same camp becomes dust, heat, thirst, and exhaustion. Disease waits in both seasons. The strongest man in camp can be gone in a week. The quietest tent can become empty overnight. And still, the river keeps shining. That is the cruelty of gold fever. It gives just enough to keep men from leaving. Not enough to make most of them rich. Just enough to make them believe tomorrow might be different. By 1850, the easy gold is already harder to find. The camps grow. The stakes grow. The arguments grow. Some settlements become towns, with wooden buildings, stores, saloons, blacksmiths, lodging houses, and muddy streets filled with men still pretending they are only one discovery away from fortune. Other camps vanish almost as quickly as they appeared. A creek is emptied. A rumor dies. A tent collapses. The people move on. And what remains is broken equipment, scarred earth, abandoned claims, and silence. Meanwhile, San Francisco changes almost overnight. A frontier port becomes a boomtown. Ships fill the harbor. Cargo piles up on the docks. Buildings rise from mud and speculation. Men who never touch a pan become wealthy from transport, supply, land, food, tools, and timing. The gold rush creates fortunes, but rarely for the men standing knee-deep in freezing water. California itself changes faster than law can follow. In 1850, it becomes a state. But out in the goldfields, survival still depends on older, harder rules. Mud, water, luck, judgment, and the ability to know when a dream has become a trap. So could you survive it? Could you keep your gold hidden? Could you keep your water clean? Could you protect your claim without making enemies? Could you walk away from a river that still might give you one more chance? Could you leave before the place took your health, your money, your trust, and your last reason to go home? The California Gold Rush was not just a search for metal. It was a test of what people become when fortune seems close enough to touch. Some became rich. Many became broke. Some never returned home. And much of the land never returned to what it had been. If you survived 1849, you carried more than gold. You carried the memory of mud roads, cold rivers, dirty water, overpriced food, silent tents, abandoned claims, and men who learned too late that the promise of wealth could be another kind of prison. You carried the knowledge that fortune does not always save a person. Sometimes it lures them deeper. And in the gold fields of California, the real question was never whether gold existed. It was whether you could survive long enough to leave with anything at all.